The Trump administration continuing its assault on democracy this week, first attacking U.S. judges for not giving the president free rein, then threatening to suspend habeas corpus, which is the right of a person to challenge their detention in court. But on Friday, a temporary win for due process. Rümeysa Öztürk, a Turkish international student, was freed from ICE detention on Friday. You may recall back in March, she was abducted by plainclothes officers while she was on the phone with her mother. A federal judge says that the government offered no evidence for why Rümeysa was arrested, other than this op-ed that she wrote in her student newspaper criticizing her university's ties to Israel. Now, her case, along with the others, highlights the administration's continued attempt to silence dissent by taking away due process rights for immigrants. Joining us now is comedian and legal law expert Mo Amer.
Yeah, come on, man. What are you guys doing to me?
Who tackles a lot of these issues on his Netflix show, Mo, and MSNBC legal analyst Charles Coleman. We'll let him do the legal commentary.
Please.
But you're more than welcome to weigh in on it as well. But it's interesting because your show, which came out way before this happened, you're Palestinian American. You have an incredible show. I encourage everyone to watch season 2. You're at the nexus of immigration and free speech in this country. And now we're seeing firsthand these students, in the case of Mahmoud Khalid, Palestinian green card holder, Rümeysa, Turkish citizen, Mohsen Mahdawi. In some ways, you wrote the script for what we're kind of seeing right now. I'm just curious, what do you make of this development in this country?
Are you blaming this on me?
No.
Are you psychic?
I know.
How did you know this was going to happen?
Nostradamus is wrong a lot, by the way. That's a whole other conversation. But no, I really, I went through the immigration system myself. I was an asylee to the States. It took me 20 years to get my citizenship. And to be honest with you, I kind of saw it, really a long time ago. And I kind of want to tackle these things a lot earlier, but until I feel like Hollywood caught up and understood, like, these stories absolutely need to be told, and just to explore all these things within my series and to see things unfolding the way they are today is really shocking, to be honest. Like, we went into a detention center. I spoke to detainees that were there unlawfully and spent quite a long time there, and see what their experience was like there, because I was, in the end, like a very privileged refugee.
Right.
I came as a refugee to America, an asylee to America, but also, someone always has it much worse than you do. And just hearing their stories is really quite jarring, and it's something that I definitely wanted to cover within the series, and something I wanted to shed light on it, but more so peek into it and get to know the characters a lot more, because I think usually you hear, like, oh, there's immigrants as asylees, and you see these images on news programs, and you don't really know the people at all. You don't know the background. You don't know their stories. You don't know what it actually even takes to become a citizen. You think you just show up to America and they're just passing out green cards. Here you go, baby. It's not how it goes. It's really a long, difficult, and very sloppy process, quite frankly. And so, yeah, that's it's something that I've known for quite some time, and immigrants and asylees in America know it as well. And I was just after 26 years of doing professional stand-up, somebody finally had the courage to allow me to tell the story.
Charles, can I ask you what you think of sort of the power of the image, not just in terms of the representation that comes from a show like yours, Mo, but also, the images we saw of the mayor of Newark arrested in front of an ICE detention center just the other day, the image of Rümeysa Öztürk taken off the street, what they signal about the law enforcement apparatus in this country, and what the administration also might mean in some cases creating some of these images and disseminating them.
Well, Tony, I think a lot of it really boils down to fundamentally how we are going to define what it is to be America and American going forward. The expectation that the processes, the apparatus that exists, that we so ardently and fervently lean into as to what it is to define America is being challenged. And I think that Ras Baraka, for example, being there and his presence in challenging that by law is an example of what this moment calls for people who are going to be truth seekers and truth tellers, to lean on what the law says in terms of what we should be able to do, what we're supposed to be able to do, and to challenge these systems when they're not working for us the way that they are supposed to. That is going to need to be done more if we're going to fight things that are going to reach or trying to reshape America as we know it. And that's why it's so critically important. Beyond the law, beyond what's actually going to happen if Ras Baraka is ever actually prosecuted, the fact that there is the need to challenge this and to see that these systems have to be pushed back on in this moment is what's critically most important.
But it seems like the legal environment may be shifting somewhat here. We actually had the student's lawyer, many of these students who've been detained, on last week, I think it was. It feels like a million years ago. And Ramzi Qassem, the lawyer, talked about how attorneys are learning and adapting to these, what they're learning about how ICE is treating things, how these immigration courts are responding to their arguments. That might be part of the reason why Rumeysa was able to get out, because they're learning and adapting. But then you have Stephen Miller out there talking about how they're potentially going to suspend habeas corpus. Do you think that is a response to lawyers getting smarter and figuring out how to better use the system to the advantage of their wrongly detained clients?
Well, make no mistake about it. America's future rests in the hands of the judiciary. I've been saying this for a while, because in order for Congress to legislate its way around this, you're looking at a House that is basically inept in terms of its ability to get things done, with Mike Johnson leading the ship over there. And they're beholden to Donald Trump. The judiciary does not necessarily have those constraints. And that's why when you're looking at venue shopping, federal courts in different circuits, and how people are approaching this strategically, you're seeing that as a very, very viable way to try and push back. Stephen Miller understands this. The Trump administration understands this, which is why you've seen such a strong attack on the judiciary, because they understand that this is more likely than not the biggest obstacle that they have for accomplishing their agenda. So you're right. This is a response to that, because they know if anyone can stop us, it's going to be the courts.
Mo, let me.
I gotta say just real quick.
Yeah.
I'm a comedian. I'm an observer. I don't really just looking outside. I'm just thinking, like, how you say like lawyers are learning on the fly and go for it, but how do you combat lawlessness? How do you combat a complete disregard for the law? I mean, I don't mean to laugh about it, but
no, it's such an important
really,
question.
it's just kind of wild. This poor woman is walking down the street. She's talking to her mother. There's somebody in plain clothes. You don't even know if he's a cop or not a cop or police officer or not. And he has no right to actually detain her. There's no actual proof or evidence that she did any criminal act whatsoever. She wrote an academic essay. Okay, and she gets arrested. It's not funny. It's terrifying. I'm laughing because of these reasons, because you can't help it, but just kind of want to, push those feelings aside. But anyway, yeah, how do you combat that? You say, like, lawyers are learning on the fly. What are you talking about? Like, you're just making up stuff and just, executive order this and executive order that and pick up this person, pick up that person. You have children in court having to, defend themselves in court, 4-year-olds.
Yeah, well, the Trump administration took away their right to pro bono representation, and a judge said, no, you have to restore it. They are required to give these, access to lawyers to these 4-year-old kids in some cases, and the Trump administration has not complied with that order. So to your point,
that's
like
wild.
how do you comply?
4-year-olds sitting there with headphones, terrified, away from their parents,
trying to talk about their conditions,
trying to defend themselves in court.
Well, let me ask you about what you just brought up, because I think it cuts to something deeper here, which is the idea or the notion of free speech and to some extent self-censorship. You rightfully pointed out Rumeysa was just writing an essay. Others may have participated in more activity, but if you just take that idea that somebody is ultimately being detained and disappeared for their rights to speak. You write, you speak. Does that give you a chilling effect? Are you, you're obviously way more high profile than any of the people that have been detained, but I'm just curious to know whether that fear affects you as well.
Well, I'm an artist. I don't operate from a place of fear, to be honest.
Right.
I don't really think that way. I think about stand-up comedy has always been an art form that makes you laugh and make you think. You have to definitely make the audience laugh, but you definitely, if you can add that other sophisticated layer of thought, then you've really created something special. So you can't operate from a place of fear in that way. Some things feel dangerous, some things feel scary to talk about on stage, but the more so, the better I feel, because these conversations need to happen. And comedians in particular, they're always like speaking truth to power is part of that art form in particular. That's why, I'm blanking right now, excuse me. But the every year, once a year, they usually have the president will sit there at a
the White House
Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
There'll be a comedian there.
Yeah,
and
of course, to roast the president.
That's part of the
Usually.
process, usually. But that's what it is. That's the essence of the art form. But I don't think that way. I think that once you do so, then your art form itself starts to be watered down a bit.
Charles Coleman Jr., thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Charles. Good to
joining
see
us. Mo, don't go anywhere.
We're gonna get our money. We're gonna get our money's worth out of you. You're staying.
Exactly.
You're not going anywhere, bud.
See that? I'm exhausted, guys. Let me out.
No.
Well,
No.
I have heard.
I was on a watch list downstairs. Was that Trump too?
Could be. Could be.